Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of Jordan and Drew, the Sports Crew, the EWC Boys Basketball Preview. We had the girls' basketball preview air yesterday, and now we got the boys one here. So let's get right into it. We have Robert Shimek here, of course. Robert, how you doing?
Great.
Yeah, this is gonna be a great episode. It's boys basketball, and I mean Robert's account. It used to be just EWC Boys Basketball, and now or EWC Basketball. And now we're covering boys basketball. So this is kind of his bread and butter. And I myself, I love some good high school basketball. So this will be a really fun episode. So without further ado, let's get right into it here. We're going to do kind of how we did that girls episode that was aired yesterday. We're going to start from the bottom to the top in the conference, how we think it's going to go. And then we'll also throw together probably a first team list, and we're going to try to project the player of the year, and we know how that debate's going to go, so that'll be a lot of fun. Let's get right into it, though. Number 8, we have the Two Rivers Raiders is what we're predicting here. And, Robert, you agree with that?
Yes, they are number 8.
Yeah, and just this Raiders team, looking at it from last year, 4-10 in conference, 5-16 overall, but they're losing a lot of seniors, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. And so this Raiders team, it's going to be kind of, I'd say in high school, like a rebuilding year. I mean, there's not a lot of guys, not a lot of seniors for this team, and it's going to be a tough year. You're going to probably see a lot of sophomores, good chunk of juniors on the playing varsity minutes, a lot of varsity minutes. So hopefully, I mean, that will give them some great experience for years to come, but I don't think this year is going to be a year for the Two Rivers Raiders.
Yeah, I'm sure Two Rivers kind of wishes they could suit up their coach, because Brett Linsmeyer is taking over for the TR squad in his first year, and there's nothing here for him. I mean, they had Cameron Daffner, Salta, Bryce Peterson, Kippart, Lindbergh, Oliveira. From my sources, beat writers out of TR, he's rumored to be on the fence of going out and is likely to not go out. So that's probably their 6 best players last year are not returning, and Two Rivers was not good last year. So I mean, they were 5-16 last year. The 2 times I saw them play did not look good, and JV and JV2, they're 4-13 and 4-11. Honestly, this is, I mean, it's just kind of sad. I mean, I'm underprepared for this team just because I really just don't know. Brady Richards, Xander Pop, Orion Gauger are 3 names that I think I've heard that, they could be some of their better players. And, I mean, they're all juniors. So hopefully those 3 can kind of, get – I'm almost going to kind of compare this to maybe like a Chilton, where like last year they had a couple guys like a Warren Wilcox who did some good things for them. So hopefully they can just be serviceable, those guys, and just play good defense. And I mean, strength and weaknesses, I don't really have a strength for them other than maybe they just got to go out there and just have energy. And okay, we have nothing to lose. Just play like our hair's on fire. And if they just play with energy and they can just have good chemistry that way, that's maybe my strength for them. But other than that, I mean, experience. They have no experience, not any experience at all. So I don't know. I'm setting the line at maybe 1.5 wins this year for TR. 1 win. It's not looking good.
Yeah, I was just about to go there. I was going to say 1 or 2 wins. Maybe we can expect a steal game, maybe. But this TR team's looking interesting. I think football hopefully can come sooner than later for the Raiders. So let's get to the next team here. I got the Sheboygan Falls Falcons, and I would not have expected them being this low for me, even a year ago or 2 years ago. And this Sheboygan Falls team, Robert, you agree with them at 7?
I think I had them at 6. Obviously my rankings didn't come out yet, but I have them at 6. I think they got a couple guys that, I mean, it's all very close, but WSN had them at 5. I don't see them being able to, beat 3 teams in the conference. I don't think 3 teams are worse than them. Obviously they lost JJ Nikolai, Tommy Murray, Isaac Clemmy, Malachi Munoz, Dylan Groskopf, and I mean that's a lot. I mean, so they lost all their starters. And a couple of guys that are returning. Ethan Valhurst, he averaged 4.2 points per game. Not bad behind all those guys. Dustin Kerwin, he'll be back. He averaged over 4 points a game. Then Reed Federer, brother of JJ, Dane Nikolai, and Brady Schneider. I think he'll be he's a sophomore this year. I think he was a good player on their freshman team. So I think their strengths are just still going to be their shooting and their transition. They're going to have to play guards. They're going to have to run up and down the floor and get people tired and just hope they're on. But I think question marks is just experience, rebounding. And I think I mentioned this maybe on one of my stories. I don't know if they're going to be able to play that zone this year just because in the past you just had Grosskopf and Clemmy and Nikolai and Spielvogel. They're all so long that zone really worked and was really effective. I don't know with undersized players all, around 6 feet and under, if that's really going to work this year. So I think that's my main concern for them.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up. Maybe we won't see that iconic Sheboygan Falls zone this year. Who did you have then at number 7?
New Holstein.
Okay, yeah. So we flipped them there, which I guess is fair. That's a fair thing to do there, flipping them. So let's talk then. We'll talk about the New Holstein Huskies then, right into this. So New Holstein, the one guy who comes to mind who is returning, of course, is Henry Schnell. After coming, last year we saw him. You would put him on your top 10. He's number 7, I believe, right?
Yeah, 7.
And I think that's a fair spot for him. But other than that, they have a Casper they're returning, and just it's not Sam Casper. So this New Holstein team is gonna be. I think it's gonna be a tougher year. I think they're gonna be in that bottom 3. I agree with you on that. So, what do you want to add about these New Holstein Huskies?
Yeah, they have Dale Forstner coming over, and he guided Stockbridge to a 21-4 record and a sectional appearance last winter. So now he's coming to New Holstein, and he's replacing Jason Hirth. And so, who knows? He's obviously a great coach at Stockbridge who was successful the last number of years. But on top, not having a strong senior class kind of worries me when a new coach comes in. And obviously Henry Schnell, he's in that top 10. 7, I put him at 7 just because I think he's in the mix with those guys. I think he could be anywhere from 7 to 10 to 6 in there. He's in there. He's a second-team all-conference player. But, yeah, I think New Holstein, they're just going to have to be kind of scrappy. Jaden Braun, he's going to have to shoot it well for him. Phil Casper, he played limited minutes last year. I really haven't seen much from him. He's not Sam Casper, deflecting shots and altering shots and, just being a beast down low. But, he's still 6'4". And so I think they're just really just going to have to scrap games together, and they're going to have to win in the 40s and 50s. I don't see them winning a lot of 79, 78 games to any teams. But, yeah, there's teams they can beat in this conference, and there's teams they could probably go upset. You saw them beat Brillion last year when I don't know if New Holstein had a win in conference, and they took down Brillion, and that was off of a COVID quarantine for their team. But, yeah, 6-11 last year. Their JV record was 4-13. They had a strong JV2 record, 15-2. So I think, who knows, there could be some freshmen coming up that we just don't really know about, and I think that will be the case. But other than that, I don't see many just for sure wins on New Holstein's schedule. But, like I said, they never know. They could play spoiler to some people or just win the games they're supposed to. So, yeah, I got them at 7. And I think not to go on too long here, but Mark Miller has them at 8. So they had him behind. He has them at 8. I don't see how they're behind New Holstein with a guy like Schnell and some returning guys, but he had them last, but I don't see that happening.
Was TR at 7 there for Mark Miller then?
Yeah, TR was at 7.
I'm shocked he even had. Okay. Wow. So, yeah, we're going to keep TR at 8 for ours, and I think Chilton, or not Chilton, Falls and New Holstein kind of interchange them there. But, yeah, we saw New Holstein steal a win at home against Valders last year, take the tabletop back, which is something we got going on between New Holstein and Valders. So let's move to number 5 here. Chilton, right? Are we in agreement there? I guess that's your number 5.
Hold on, I gotta look at I'm pretty sure that was my ranking. Yes, Chilton was at.
I would assume
them at number 5.
Okay, perfect. And so yeah, we can talk a little bit about these Chilton Tigers. You mentioned guys returning like Warren Wilcox. I mean, Alex Breckheimer, of course, and just this team, this Chilton Tigers team coming back. I mean, not going to be that dominant Chilton team we saw a few years ago with like Breckel and Caprell, but certainly a pretty good Tigers team in the middle of the pack. I'd say we'll see them this year, and you agree with me on that. It sounds like. So, what do you think about this Tigers team here?
Yeah, you lose Alec Lemke, Blake Beasley, and Luke Hallbach. I mean, those are your best 3 guys, and I mean they got Mitchell Schwab, Max Miller, Jordon Lemke, Austin Gruby back. Other newcomers, Ryan Piarkey, Zach Hallbach, Drew Pievenberg, Xander Bowe. I mean, Hovey. I mean, so I think shooting is going to be one of their strengths just because, Warren Wilcox is a player I like. Will Furbiger. I think shooting, they're going to have to be able to shoot the ball this year. I don't think they're just going to be able to pound it into Hallbach and play bully ball like they did sometimes. And I think they'll have some good chemistry. I liked what I saw off the bench last year from Max Miller. I liked what I saw off the bench from him. So I think they just all kind of played well. That's the thing that kind of stuck out to me. Obviously, Breckheimer, you got him too. They all kind of just played well last year. For some reason, that just stuck out for me. And they just all knew their role very well. So I think that's where they're ahead of those bottom 3 teams just because of that. I think they just know their role. They're more experienced. But I just think just strength overall, but after Breckheimer isn't really there. And, I mean, I don't think they have any great ball handlers. But I don't know. It's just they're kind of balanced, but it's just a lot of just randomness. But I think it kind of works from that way if you can understand that. I mean, in JV1s, they had about a 500 record last year, 7-13 at the varsity, on the varsity squad. And, yeah, they open up against Michigan next week. And, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be an okay year, but I don't see them getting farther than 5. So I think 5, 6, them and New Holstein will be close.
Yeah,
I mean them and New Holstein Falls, they'll be kind of close in there.
I agree, and we saw them at 6 last year in the conference, 4-10, 7-13 overall. And moving to number 4 here, I have Kiel.
Yes.
Okay, glad we're on the same page there because I was about to bring out my Valders Viking in me to defend the Valders Vikings, but
I got it.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same.
My boy Cole Hovey's got Valders at least at 3.
Yeah, so the Kiel Raiders, 10-4 last year, 27 overall. I mean, they graduated a good group of guys with Coleman and Lapisso, of course, to name a few. And then they got now we got Pierce Arns. So that's going to be kind of the Pierce Arns show with the Kiel Raiders. And this team, I mean, then they have some other guys like they have Mitchell Endries, and then Grant, there's another Mons there. And other than that, I mean, they give us 3 players on the roster for this year for the Kiel Raiders, which other than those 3, though, I mean, with Arns being such a great player in himself, I think that puts Kiel significantly ahead of the other teams we mentioned so far.
Yeah, Kiel, I don't know. Originally I had Kiel and Valders close, but I think, Kiel fans, might not love me to say this. I think they're a little closer to Chilton than they are to the top 3 teams. And I got my sources tell me there's some guys on the fence between Mitchell Endries and Dan Schmitz.
Oh.
Dan Schmitz was a starter last year, and Mitchell Endries was, I think, first off the bench. And I don't know if those guys are playing this year. Say they're not playing, this is a very young team. And I think inexperience at the varsity level, especially when you're playing at the Jet Hangar, at Valders, at New Holstein, tough places to play. it's not great when you don't have experienced guys. And I think people don't really understand when you just have experience and you have guys who are always in control and slow down. I think people kind of lose track of that sometimes. So, I mean, when you lose Keenan Munns and Carson Lepisto and Travis Coleman, like a Keenan Munns, you really just can't – I don't see him play. So you got Grant Munns coming back, and Grant Munns is one of my favorite young players in the conference right now. I think he'll have a breakout year this year. I think he'll be like a 9 to 10 point per game guy as a sophomore, maybe even more. But in another bold prediction I'm going to make is Pierce Arntz could lead the conference in scoring. I could see him scoring 24 points a game, 23 points a game, just because he's always got the ball in his hands. I watched him in summer league this year one time. He was it's going to run through him. He's going to get his shots. Last year, he attempted a ton of field goals and a ton of free throws. And with Coleman and Lepisto leaving, I believe they were both like top 3 in three-point attempts. Somebody's going to have to fill those. And with guys not coming out or guys maybe or guys being young, I think that's where it kind of gets tricky. And now you do have some guys, and I mentioned them last year. Landon Brunner and Jack Heckman could be solid guys. They were really good on JV. You got Cade Velker coming up. You got, what's his name? April. I forgot his first name. Maybe like Braden April, something like that. April's a guy you really got to look out for in the coming years. He's really good. He's really athletic. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I think they're a little – to start the year, I'm not going to put them up in that Valders tier. I almost think Valders could be in a tier themselves at the 3 or even – move them up just because I don't think Kiel's as deep as them. I just don't think they have enough experience, and I don't think they're strong enough yet.
Well, they certainly aren't. And you mentioned with those two guys from your TMZ style of news, so you heard some like Dan Schmitz. I mean, that's big if he's not coming out. And you could certainly see, I mean, I like your bold prediction even with Arns averaging 20 plus. That's certainly a possibility if he's going to keep the ball in his hands and be the primary shot taker for this Kiel Raider team. So, yeah, and also like what you said, now moving on to number 3 here, Valders, I think you can put them in their own tier at number 3. They could certainly challenge those top dogs at 2-1, but they're significantly, I think they're better than these teams below them. So this Valders Vikings team, they're returning a lot of their young guys. I mean, they're losing Dietrich, Valesky, and Vanden Heuvel, maybe even Seth Mangan. We got to add there. I'm joking. Kyle Whitmus. We love you, Seth. But
Kyle Whitmus, that's a big loss on the bench. Just bench energy.
That is the bench energy for that Vikings team. But hey, they have some nice guys coming back, of course. Cole Hovey, you can't say enough about him. You love him, Robert. He's back. Mason Myers he was a starter last year. Jackson Olsen, Trey Schneider. And then, like Brady Bodart, of course, Brady Hero. But they got also like Nathan Banky, Brain, Sobel, Shane Griepenchuk. We'll see those guys off the bench. A smaller roster for this Valders team this year, but I really like this team. I think hopefully we can see Jackson Olsen make a big sophomore to junior year leap that he's truly capable of making. Just hopefully we can see that happen. Trey Schneider, we'll see a lot more minutes out of him. He'll be starting next year, and he'll make some big plays, I'm sure. And then with Myers being lockdown defender, I like this Valders team a lot this year, Robert, and I know you do too.
Yeah, like I said before, I had Cole Hovey at 4, but then something yesterday just kind of told me, I just kept looking at it more, and obviously I spend way too much time and overthink a lot of things, but I don't think I overthought this. I mean, Cole Hovey is just a bigger player, 6'3". I mean, obviously he's not like he doesn't have the 6'7" athleticism that maybe like Lawrenz have, but for his height and his stature, he's probably one of the most athletic players in the conference. Like, he's so athletic. We saw that in football, and I saw him in summer league one game this year. Very athletic. So Cole Hovey, I think he's a first-team all-conference player because I think Valders finishes high. I think he's their best player right now. In Jackson Olsen, maybe 1A to Cole Hovey. I mean, he's just a really tall. Was he 6'6", 6'5",
6'6", yeah. We have him at 6'6".
He can shoot it. I mean, maybe not as physical as you see most 6'6" people play. That's just not his style, and that's okay. They have physical guys, and Mason Myers. There's a guy that obviously he's not going to be in a top 10 list, but there's a guy right there that I really like, just because he's just so scrappy, so great defender, does the little things, dives on the floor. And yeah, Brady Bodart, I think he has the capability to have some, 18-point games, 20-point games where he hits 4 to 5 threes, and he makes some plays. And he's just a little spark guy who can get hot quick. You need guys like him on a team like this. I really like this team just because I think they can score. They have good size, good athleticism, good experience, and good leadership. And then, questions. I just think, how deep are they? You kind of said that. I mean, their bench doesn't, jump off the page to you. But, we're used to kind of seeing some Valor's teams. Obviously their state team, they were not deep at all. But if you can put out a team with the starters they're putting out, I think they'll be just fine.
Exactly. I'm in complete agreement with you. I really like this Valor's team. And like Sobel off the bench, that's a shooter right there for this team. Griepentrog as well can shoot the ball, and Nathan Banky. He's a tall guy. He can grab some rebounds and play some good defense. So you're going to want him as well. But yeah, if he adds that physical kind of play style to his game, we're talking about. Right now I think he's a first teamer, but he's easily a first team unanimous if he adds that physical style to his game, and he's certainly a player to watch out for with Cole Hovey, of course. But let's move to number 2 here on the rankings. I got Roncalli. I'm sure you have the same.
Yeah, it honestly was actually closer than you probably expected, but I just have Roncalli at 2.
Yeah. Now let's talk some Roncalli Jets. Returning the Conference Player of the Year, and Luke Pouts for his senior year. That kind of headlines the team. He averaged 20 last year. He's a great player, as we know. He's been for years. And plus some other guys there like Reese Stengel, Braden Yonda, Ryan Fisher, to name a few. And then even the guy who number 10 on your list, is it Witzak? Witzak, yeah, Joe Witzak. So he's a guy there for this Jets team as well. What do you like about this Roncalli team so much, Robert?
Yeah, see, I'm actually good. I'll actually start in reverse from your question here. And I'll start with the thing I don't like about him, which I could get proven wrong because a lot of people say this and they always seem to get proven wrong. The only reason I have him at 2 is just because of their depth. I see you got Luke Pouts, you got Witzak, you got Yonda. And their other starters, I really don't know. Ryan Fisher, maybe Sam Schultz will be the other starters. And Gallus, I recognize the name. I couldn't put a face to him. And then you got, they have a lot of newcomers. Brett Simmer, Connor Kubish, Braden Reimer, good football player, really physical, strong guy. Deacon Gray, Sawyer Shipper, recognize a couple of those names. They're baseball players. But they need to find a diamond in the rough in one of those players who can just kind of come out. They don't have to score. They just have to be really good defenders, really good players in that Roncalli system, passers, slippers, screeners, and defensive players. If they can find one or two of those guys who can just come and do those little things, dive on the floor, be loud, and they can fit their system really well, and then maybe knock down shoot 25 to 30% from 3 and knock down one a game, I think that will take them to another level. But I don't really see anyone, as I know of right now, in that area. So I just think, when defenses kind of prepare, you have Luke Pouts. Obviously, that's your main focus. And I think teams will be okay if Luke Pouts scores 25 and grabs 12 rebounds when, the other guys, they might not have to focus on them that much, rather than focusing on Tyler Bonin, Trevor FICO, guys like that, Halupny, guys like that you really have to focus on. I don't see them really having to focus on those other guys. So that is why I have them at 2, confidently, just because I don't know if they have that other guy there, like a Tyler Bonin, who just kind of broke out and was a tough player, and we really didn't know that much about him before the year. And I think Joe Witzak will get into that. We'll get into that Tyler Bonin role. He's just a quick guy. I think he can shoot. Average 5 a game last year, not bad. But that's kind of what I'm looking at for the Roncalli team this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, it's gonna be a 2-man show, I think, and with Witzak and Pouts. But what puts this Brillion team at number one? Yep, shocker, Brillion's number one here for both the basketball, for both in boys and girls. And this Brillion team, though, what puts them ahead of every other team, I think, is that depth that they have in the starting 5 and off the bench. I mean, and plus they got their star in Lawrenz, and then they got those solid starters who you even put in the top 10, which they're very deserving of it. And was it Parker Braun, Mason Banky, and Kane Holly? Those guys?
Yes.
And
we'll see if Lawrenz makes it in the top 10.
Yeah, come on. Okay. Well, you're right. He might not even be in the top 10. He hasn't been announced yet as of this recording, but so this team, they have the solid starting 5, and then you got guys like Gabe Lumberger off the bench. You got Jack Fisher. I mean, there's guys on this team then to complement that starting 5. So this Brilliant team is definitely, I think, right now the team to beat. But I think challengers with Roncalli and Valders, they could suffer a loss or two from those teams as well. And I don't know. Right now we have a team to beat, but certainly looking back at it, they might not. They could be the conference champs. I think it's up for grabs. But what do you think about this Brilliant team?
So just feel free if I just go over my time limit here, but just to interrupt me and shut me down. But obviously there's just a ton to like. 16-9, their best record in a while. JV record 14-5, and that was with a lot of guys just playing one half, or rosters changing all throughout the season last year. So a respectable record there. I got strengths for them. I just have experience, athleticism, defense. Questions I kind of have, and I don't think they're that weak in any of these areas, but I think if they don't improve on last year, they're not going to win the conference. And that's ball handling and perimeter shooting. You just lost Hunter Kreplin, who was probably a top-tier ball handler in the conference last year. You could just give it to him, and he could work through his zone by himself, didn't even need to pass it. And then perimeter shooting, Brilliant the last couple of years have been at the bottom. I think they were in the cellar last year. Didn't shoot the ball very good at all. So if they don't turn that around, they're in trouble. But not in trouble, but they're gonna perform below their expectations. And I think a guy, Parker Braun, he's just a guy. He's on my list this year where he's really underrated. He could break out. I think he has possibility to be a first-team player. Parker Braun can be a special player when he puts the tools together. And obviously, like you said, Caden Holly, Mason Banky. Mason Banky's just average 8 points per game last year. He's a guard, but he's always seems to be guarding. I think he was on Casper for a little bit last year. He's always guarding that they're 4. Caden Holly, I think, and he is kind of a generational point guard you usually see from he's got that skill. As a sophomore, he scored 7.5 points per game. That's not bad. I think he'll get there. And then you had players off the bench. I'm reading off the list here. Cesar Hinojosa, he was a sophomore, missed last season with injuries. He was a sophomore that started on Brilliant my senior year. He just tore his ACL, so he will not be there. Caleb Grimm off the bench. Bennett Olson, I think he could work his way into that starting lineup. I think he's their 5th guy. Grady Geiger, he's 6'6", really, really athletic shot blocker. When he puts it together, he can just be a really good player. But there's a guy who's coming back this year, didn't play last year, just won the Player of the Year defense in football, and I think he takes this team over the top. Mitchell Kotarabic is back. He was a player his sophomore year on varsity that played good minutes, Didn't average a lot of points, but he's back this year. I think he's the Carter Stabani 3.0 for this brilliant team. And I think he's the person who brings it over the top. And I just think Brilliant is just a really strong physical team this year. And, yeah, I'm really excited that Kaderovic is back because I think he takes them over the top, and he's their piece they're kind of missing. And, yeah, so I'm excited for Brilliant this year.
Yeah, they have a good recipe for success. I didn't realize Kaderovic was coming back. That's even better for this Lions team. And, yeah, I mean, if you have Lawrenz driving and if he's able to kick out some of these shooters, I mean, that has success written all over it for this Brilliant team. And let's go now to the first team projected, what we think is going to go on here. So, Robert, I mean, we can kind of name the four obvious, my bad, with Pouts, Lawrenz, Hovey, and Arns. You agree with those four, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I think, barring injury or barring a team, not that we're still on COVID stuff, but barring a team that just kind of either, like, if a team just deals with injuries and just finishes way below, then, maybe a Hovey is below and Olsen's on instead. But who knows? Barring injury, those are the four.
And then we go for number 5. That's the one where I throw in, like Jackson Olsen, Henry Schnell. There's guys who could fit in there. You mentioned some guys from Brilliant who could potentially take that. You said Caden Holly, right?
Yeah, I think I think first team is those fours, and I think guys who have the capability to get on the first team. I think there's 4 guys I think that are capable of getting on that list, and it's Jackson Olsen. I have him at 5 right now. It's Caden Holly, it's Parker Braun, and it's Joe Witzak. Those are my 4 guys who I think could get first team. Henry Schnell, I'm sorry, I just don't think he'll be a first team player. When your team finishes in the bottom 3, that's projected right now. And I just think if you interchange some players, I don't think he's a first team all conference player unless he just has some incredible season where he averages 18, 19 points per game. But I don't see him being on the first team. So, yeah, I think it's between Olsen, Holly, Braun, and Joe Witzak. And I think Witzak gets on if Roncalli can win the conference and he can be kind of your Tyler Bonin and kind of sneak onto that list. That's how I see him getting on. But that's right where I was going with it. Yeah, I think it'll be Holly, Brown, or Olsen.
I think I think Valor's could still have 2 guys on the first team, barring how Olsen performs this year. But I think certainly we could see exactly what you mentioned. Roncalli last year winning the conference. Their reward, they get 2 guys on. You get Bonin over Krepling is kind of how it worked, and that's okay. They won the conference. They deserve. It worked out. And I guess let's talk now about a fun part. Here we go, Robert. Conference Player of the Year. Who do you have?
Well, it's whoever wins the conference. I think it's just as simple as that.
Yeah,
we both know. Lawrenz is the sixth best player in his junior class, according to WSN. He's a future Division I player. He's obviously going to score, or he has the capability to score north of 20 points per game. I think he scores about 21, 22 points per game this year. And, he's just defensively, maybe he's not the best perimeter ball defender, but you can't – with him and Grady Geiger in the lane this year, so many shots are just going to get altered. And then, so I think obviously Luke Pouts, I think he wins it if Roncalli wins the conference just because, he helped his team to another championship. And he's going to average 20 and 14 this year. I think with some of these undersized teams, when you talk about New Holstein, Two Rivers, Sheboygan Falls, Chilton, Kiel. Luke Pouts, he had 24 rebounds one game last year. I think he could hit that. I think he could see that 15 rebound per game average. As weird as that sounds, or as insane that sounds, I think that's really in the realm of possibilities. So I think obviously whoever wins the conference gets it. I think Lawrenz is maybe favored a little bit by now. You'll have to – well, the results will be out by Friday. So at this point, you'll know that Lawrenz is my number one player in my rankings, just because I just think he's just the overall better player all around. But Luke Pouts is 1A, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly a possibility. I think we mentioned the depth with this Roncalli Jets team. I think Pouts might be able to accumulate better counting stats over the year compared to Lawrenz, and that's something that maybe because with Brilliant having that excellent depth, that might hurt Lawrenz in terms of player of the year standing and if how much they value those counting stats. So I don't know how that's going to work in the conference player of the year, but I do like if whoever wins the conference, it should be Pouts then for Roncalli, Lawrenz for Brilliant. But just wanted to point out with the lack of depth for Roncalli, that might actually help Pouts' case out as well.
Yeah.
But with that, Robert, is there anything else you want to talk about with the boys team? I know we could talk for hours on end about this stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can. I mean, just a couple guys. I mean, I have a couple guys that obviously we talked a lot about, a player that's kind of under the radar. I already talk a lot about him. I mean, Parker Brown's my under the radar guy. I had him at 8, and, he didn't have any gaudy numbers from last year. I think he averaged average 5 points a game or something like that. And, didn't shoot it great, maybe 33% from beyond the arc. But he's a guy I just think he could take over games. And he's a guy who could score out of the gym and shoot the lights out if he gets hot. Just didn't have that experience last year and was really tentative early on in the year. Never really put it together until late in the year. Max Miller is a guy from Chilton. I don't know his status, actually. I got a source that said he might be missing some games from a football injury. I don't know for sure. He's a guy I really like from Chilton. I think he's, just became a better athlete. I saw it in football a little bit. And other than that, yeah, Joe Witzak and Braden Yonda. I mean, Braden Yonda, here's a guy I think who could also be a player for Roncalli, who we don't really know about. And all of a sudden, he's just one of their better players. I think he does play good defense like Roncalli, but I mean, I think pretty much we went over everything. Like I said, Mason Myers from Valders, he's one of my favorite players, and then Cole Hovey's one of my favorite players in the conference. And then Chilton, we went over them, and Brilliant, obviously I went over them. So I mean, really nothing else. Basically, it's your top 3 teams, and then I think it's everyone else. I'm not even putting Kiel in the top 3 teams just because I don't know. I just think I don't see how a team like that, when you're just so young like that and you have no leadership really besides Pierce Arns, a sophomore, who's, I mean, let's just face it, undersized. I don't see how you just start upsetting a Roncalli or teams like that. I mean, not say that you can't do it, but yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much hit it all, unless you want to make another ranking or prediction.
No,
something like that. I don't really know what else we could do. But.
Well, with Valders, yeah, I like him. You mentioned Myers. I'm glad we mentioned him again. Talk about being like that glue guy for the team. Also, Trey Schneider starting. I think that's kind of a sleeper for me too. Just with him coming back now for his sophomore year, I think he'll be a guy to watch for that Valders team, along with that great group of guys they have going for him right now as well. But with that, Robert, I think we hit it all. We're definitely going to be doing some mid-season check-ins, of course, on the podcast. And Robert, you want to explain how you're going to be breaking down the boys basketball season on your page at EWC_sports?
Yeah, so obviously when I started EWC Sports, basketball was the primary thing I covered, and it was the only thing I covered. So obviously I spend my most time into that, but I definitely think you will see more than that than any other sports. I kind of mentioned I do wrestling every once a week. I don't know if I want to do wrestling just because I don't know if it's worth it. But yeah, girls basketball I mentioned in the last episode. I do maybe like a once every 2 weeks post. Boys basketball, like I said, I'm not going to do every game. If there's a good conference game, I might post it. Like I might make one or two games of the week to watch. I might post it on Monday, and then I'll maybe write up a little something, or if I can see it. But other than that, yeah, I'll do probably about 2 or 3 my top 10 players throughout the year, and then I'll do my power ranking or standings throughout the year too. And then, you know, maybe I'm gonna do something where like I'm gonna rank, because I think 2 years ago I ranked the top 20 all-time players.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
And I looked at that list. Besides the point of pissing the whole city of Valdez off.
Yeah, that part was not fun.
That was a really fun list to make. Obviously, I can't do that again because basically most would be the same. I might even look at doing like the last 3 years, a top 20 players or something like that. Or it's so tough because I don't want to put active players in there because they're just hard to judge. But if there's some ranking I can do, or if anyone has an idea, I'd love to do. I just like making those just because, you know, people don't know who Rudy Montoya was or Carson Hughes or Trey Hakes. So it's just a fun thing to do.
You could move up Kyle Tuma.
See, yeah. So I've actually never, I mean, sorry if we are going long on time, but I've never really explained that decision. Tuma.
Do it right now. Yeah, go.
Kyle Tuma was one of my favorite players I've watched and one of the best players I've ever watched. The only really reason, and keep in mind, a lot of people are coming at me. So Chomby's not playing college basketball. Kyle Tuma is going to win the WEAC Player of the Year this year. Well, I'm hearing a lot of that. I heard a lot of that. But for me, it was just Chomby had just more accomplishments in first-team all-conference players, and he won a Player of the Year. Kyle Tuma never won a Player of the Year. And, yeah, I think he could have got snubbed. But it was just hard for me to get past the fact that I had to put a player 1 when they were never a Player of the Year. And, yeah, I mean, obviously you can put asterisks next to stuff, and I think Kyle Tuma, there's definitely that one tier between Chomby, Velker, and Tuma's careers. But that was kind of the only reason. I mean, Chomby had 600 more points, just stuff like that, and more state appearances. I know he's in D4, but yeah, that was the only reason I put him ahead. So there's kind of my explanation.
Quick question then. Ryan Steffes, he was the one. He took the Player of the Year, I believe, from Tuma. That would have been his senior year then. If Tuma would have won that Player of the Year, would you have put him at 1, or would you still not have?
It would have been very close. I think my explanation there was Kyle Tuma was, because he didn't have one, that was my decision. That was my thing. Okay, that's why I'm going to put Chomby on. That was my kind of leg to stand on. That's why I made and put him at 3, because I think him and Carter Velker are very similar. Tuma just played on better teams, and I think they were really close. But that was my decision there. So that's why I didn't put him there. If he had it, I think it would have been a way harder decision. And I do think it could have altered the rankings, but that's why.
Okay.
But basically, it's 1A, 1B, 1C with those 3.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, you can't argue Chomby did have better counting stats. He had better accolades. Just looking at his resume looked better than Kyle's resume, just looking at him, comparing them, if you just look at it like that. But, yeah, so that was my one thing I wanted to clear up. But, yeah, thank you all for listening to yet another episode of Jordan and Drew, the Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.